Chosen one, stop everything and listen carefully. A specific person in your life worked overtime to bury your true identity, but their fortress of lies has finally shattered. The divine has intervened, and now the real truth about you has been leaked, and this group is falling over themselves in disbelief. The countdown to clarity is over, and the truth has officially reclaimed your name. Let me take you back to where this experience actually begins. Not when things went wrong. Before that, before the cracks appeared, back when everything looked perfectly fine from the outside, there was a person in your life, a relationship, a situation, and on the surface it looked balanced. It looked equal. It looked like the kind of dynamic people point to and say, that's what healthy looks like. Mutual respect, shared values, two people genuinely pouring into each other. That was the presentation. That was the front door. But you were on the inside, and you knew what things actually felt like when the audience disappeared. This person was meticulous about their image, not in the casual way most people care about perception, but in the way that someone with something to hide invests heavily in concealment. Warm in public and cold in private, generous in front of an audience and calculating when no one was watching, grounded, stable and reasonable on the outside. And they needed everyone to see that version, not because it was true, but because the truth was something they could not afford anyone to discover. Here is the part most people miss. This performance did not develop after things went wrong. This person arrived with it already running. From the very beginning, they were managing perception and constructing the narrative they would eventually need. They were not just charming, they were architecting their alibi before anything had even gone wrong. The person they chose to place closest to them, the one with full access to the private version, while everyone else only saw the polished front, was you. That choice was not random. That choice was calculated, because you had exactly what this person needed, and we are going to get to that in a moment. What is important to understand first is how deliberately this person maintained the gap between their public self and their private one. In public, the warmth felt real enough to be convincing, considerate, attentive, the kind of presence that made you feel genuinely seen. But the moment the audience cleared, the temperature dropped, the attentiveness vanished, the warmth switched off with the precision of someone flipping a switch. And there you were, watching the person everyone adored become someone entirely different, while they acted like nothing had changed at all, like you were imagining the version of them that everyone else seemed to effortlessly receive. That disorientation was not accidental, it was the point. This is the part that rearranges everything. Pay close attention, chosen one. You were targeted because of what you radiate, even now, even after everything. Even on the days when you are depleted and rebuilding from scratch, there is something that comes off of you that most people simply do not have. A warmth, a genuine quality, an energy that is magnetic without being manufactured. It is not performed. It is just real. It is just yours. The kind of frequency that draws people in without you even trying to attract them. People who operate from covert darkness are starving for that kind of energy. Not to protect it or celebrate it, they want to absorb it. They want to stand close enough to your light that they appear illuminated by association. They want to claim your warmth as their own and make absolutely sure it belongs only to them. So before anything visibly went wrong, this person was studying you, learning how you processed emotion, identifying the places inside you that had not yet fully healed, the wounds that existed long before this person ever arrived in your life, the places that still wanted to be chosen, to be genuinely seen, to be loved in the way you always deserved but did not always receive. This person found those places and walked through them deliberately, and here is what makes it particularly calculated. The exploitation was not blunt. They mirrored your light back to you. In the beginning, they gave you everything you needed to feel understood. They reflected your own warmth so precisely that you believed you had finally found someone who genuinely got it, someone who finally got you. What you did not know then, and what you understand now, is that the reflection was always a mirror, and behind a mirror there is nothing. There is only your own face looking back at you. This is also why the people around this person could never see what you saw. This person was not performing only for you. They were performing simultaneously for every audience in their life. The inner circle, the casual acquaintances, the professional contacts, the mutual connections. Maintaining all of those versions at once requires a specific and exhausting kind of calculated intelligence, the kind that has nothing left over for genuine connection, the kind that makes real sustainable love structurally impossible to give. Which is why you could never reach the finish line with this person. No matter how patient you were, how understanding, how accommodating, the return was always calibrated to just enough. Just enough to keep you trying, never enough to feel like actual fulfillment. That was the design, because a fully satisfied person stops reaching, and this person needed you to keep reaching indefinitely. The beautiful thing about finally understanding that design is this: you already walked away from it before you even had the full language for what it was. Something in you said enough, and you listened. That is not a small thing, that is everything. If this message aligned with your purpose, hype this video so fellow chosen ones can find their confirmation. Now that you understand why you were chosen, let us look at how you were kept. This is the part that rarely gets explained clearly. This is the mechanism, and once you see it fully, you will never be fooled by it again. The most effective control never announces itself as control. It presents as love. It presents as concern. It presents as two people being so aligned, so enmeshed, that your sense of self and this person's approval gradually begin to feel like the same thing. That erosion, the slow dissolving of the boundary between your identity and their validation, was the entire goal. Not dominance through force, but dominance through dependency. You were kept in a state of low-grade uncertainty, always monitoring, always reading the energy when you walked into a space, always adjusting yourself based on what you detected from this person before they even opened their mouth. That hypervigilance was exhausting, and it was entirely deliberate. It kept your attention calibrated around managing this person, which left very little available for your own growth, your own vision, and your own life unfolding in directions that had nothing to do with them. That last point matters deeply. This person did not want you expanding in directions that had nothing to do with them. Every time something genuinely good was developing in your life, something born from your own energy and talent, friction appeared. A crisis emerged that needed your immediate attention. Something redirected your focus back toward them. It was not coincidence. It was a system running exactly as designed. And when you tried to name what you were experiencing, when you said something is wrong here, this does not feel right, the conversation would shift before you could anchor it. Suddenly the issue became your delivery, your tone, your timing. The discussion about how you raised something replaced any honest examination of what you actually raised. You would walk away from those conversations more confused than when you entered them, sometimes apologizing for bringing something up at all. Look, you already know the attacks weren't random, and if you're paying attention, you can feel it. Their walls are closing in. You've also noticed something else. A lot of Chosen One channels on YouTube have gone quiet, videos removed, voices pushed off the platform. The mainstream media is cracking down on us, but we will not give up our voice. So let's talk about what we're doing about it. That's why I built Destiny Engine, and when you join, you're not just supporting your favorite channels, you're also fueling your own rise. It's a 360 win. It generates personalized sequences that help you rewire betrayal into transcendence, turn isolation into sacred power, and transform their downfall into your rise. We are using the Dark Elite's own weapons against them, taking their declassified consciousness technology that programmed competition and scarcity and repurposing it to serve cooperative intelligence. The beauty is, you don't even have to lift a finger. You put on the headphones, press play, and your subconscious is rewired while your enemies collapse under the weight of their own lies. This is why I created it in the beginning, so everything they did to break you becomes fuel for your purpose. The collective upgrade is underway. Start your destiny engine for $7 today and watch divine justice accelerate in your life. Link in the description. You recognize that pattern even when you could not name it. Even while you were still inside it, something in you knew that resolution was never the goal. The goal of every conflict was your submission, not your mutual understanding. And that knowing, quiet, persistent, and impossible to fully extinguish, is what eventually made leaving not just possible but inevitable. You were not only being isolated from other people, you were being isolated from your own perception. That is the more invasive kind. Because when someone rewires how you interpret your own experience, you carry that distortion internally. You do not need external barriers when the confusion is already inside you. But here is the thing about your perception. It was never fully suppressed. It kept surfacing. It kept insisting. It kept pointing back toward the truth. And eventually, you stopped arguing with it. Every sustained performance has a breaking point. No matter how skilled the performer or how carefully constructed the presentation, there is always a moment when the mask slips. Not falls off, slips. Just enough to reveal something real underneath. And you saw it. Maybe it was the way this person reacted to good news in your life, not with celebration, but with something noticeably cooler. Maybe it was a fragment of conversation you were never supposed to overhear. Maybe it was the way their composure cracked the moment they sensed their grip on you beginning to loosen. However it surfaced, you saw the edge of what was actually underneath the performance. And this time, instead of talking yourself out of what you witnessed, you held on to it. You did not announce it. You did not confront it immediately. You simply filed it away and trusted it. That quiet act of trusting your own perception, at the exact moment everything around you was designed to make you stop doing precisely that, was the turning point in your entire experience. From that moment forward, even without fully realizing it yet, you were no longer entirely inside the dynamic that had been built around you. You had one foot out, and this person felt that shift. People who operate through covert control always sense when the energy of the person they are managing begins to change. They cannot always articulate it, but they feel it, the way you feel a change in atmosphere before anything visible confirms it. So things escalated. The tactics became less subtle. The attempts to pull your attention back became more frequent. The pressure intensified. And paradoxically, that escalation was the most clarifying thing that could have happened to you. Because under pressure, this person stopped being careful. Every escalation revealed exactly who they were when the performance dropped. Every push confirmed what your instincts had been signaling all along. What matters most in this chapter is not what this person did. What matters is what you did. Under conditions specifically designed to break you, you did not break. You clarified, you sharpened, you became more certain, not less. And from that certainty, you made the decision that changed the entire direction of your life. Here is where your power becomes undeniable. You did not explode. You did not match chaos with chaos. You did not stage a confrontation that could be clipped and used as evidence against you later. You did something that people who operate through provocation genuinely cannot comprehend. You got still, and then you walked forward. No announcement, no scene, no final word designed to leave a mark. You simply decided quietly, privately, with the full sovereign weight of someone who had stopped asking for permission to choose themselves, that you were finished, and you moved. That decision broke the machine. The entire architecture around you was designed to run on your emotional engagement. It needed you looped in the conversation, in the conflict, in the cycle of explaining yourself, defending yourself, trying one more time to be heard. The moment you stopped trying to be understood by someone who was never going to choose to understand you, the moment you stopped performing your pain for an audience that would not receive it, The system lost its power source entirely. What happened next was predictable. Faced with an exit they could not control, this person ran to every available audience and told the version of events they needed people to hear. Fast, first. Before you could establish any alternative, they positioned themselves as abandoned, as blindsided, as the one deeply hurt by someone who left without warning or reason. They wove just enough verifiable detail into the account that it sounded credible. The facts were often real. The framing was where the lie lived. A true set of events arranged deliberately to produce a false conclusion. The group accepted it, not because everyone in it is a bad person, but because the alternative required a level of cognitive disruption that most people actively work to avoid. It was easier to accept the version requiring the least rearrangement of what they already believed. So they built their understanding of what happened to you on top of that fresh coat of paint. But paint peels, it always peels, and what has been underneath was always going to come out. Here is what your exit revealed about your character, and this deserves to be named clearly. Most people who have been genuinely wronged want the wrongdoing witnessed. They want to be seen in the act of leaving. They want the audience to turn and register exactly what happened. You did not wait for that. You chose your peace over your public vindication. That is the choice of someone operating from a deep and unperformed well of self-respect. The quiet exit cost you something real. It cost you being understood by a group that was not yet ready to understand you. You paid that cost anyway, and you walked. That is not weakness. That is the most expensive kind of strength. While the false narrative about you was circulating in spaces you were not part of, while people were forming their picture of who you are based on testimony you never got to examine, you were somewhere else entirely, doing something this person could never have anticipated. You were healing, not the performed kind, the actual kind, the quiet, unglamorous, deeply private work of sitting with what happened and choosing to understand it rather than be consumed by it. Long silences, honest self-examination, conversations with the rare person who genuinely knew you, and in the process, something began to shift inside you. The fog that had surrounded you for so long began to lift. As it cleared, you started seeing things that had been completely invisible while you were inside the situation. You saw patterns, including your own patterns. You saw the ways certain unhealed places inside you had made you available to this kind of dynamic in the first place. You examined the version of connection you had accepted because somewhere underneath everything, you had not been fully convinced that you deserved the real thing. You looked at all of that, all of it, without flinching, without turning your honest reckoning into self-punishment, without using the clarity as an excuse to stay stuck in it. You looked at it squarely and said, "Never again," not from bitterness, from self-knowledge. You declared that you see clearly now, that you know who you are, that you know what you will and will not allow into your life, and that you move from that place permanently. That is dominion. That is the kind of authority that cannot be handed to you by anyone, cannot be taken from you by anyone, and does not require any external confirmation to hold its shape. What also needs to be received here is how much that healing cost you. You were doing the deepest interior work of your life with no cheering section, no visible proof yet that the truth would ever surface, no one outside validating your perception or confirming your experience. You kept going anyway, in the quiet, trusting your own compass at the exact moment. Every social signal around you was pointing in a different direction. That kind of faith, not the kind performed on easy days when things are going well, but the kind that holds absolutely steady when everything is working against you, is extraordinarily rare. You exercised it consistently. You chose your knowing over the noise. You refused to let what was done to you harden you into someone unrecognizable. Every single one of those choices was an act of genuine unwitnessed power. Let us walk through what is happening inside that group right now, not to dismiss these people and not to elevate them either, but because understanding what they are experiencing is precisely what keeps you free of it. Most of them chose comfort over truth, not out of malice, but because choosing truth in situations like this is genuinely disruptive. It requires dismantling an image of someone you trusted, and that dismantling is painful and socially costly. It was far easier to accept the version that required the least rearrangement, to decide that you were the complicated one, the sensitive one, the one who made everything difficult. So that is what some of them did. Some went further. They actively enjoyed having a clear side to stand on. There is a particular satisfaction in rallying around someone who performs victimhood convincingly. It makes you feel loyal, protective, and morally certain. It gives you a defined role. They were performing their own version of goodness, and this person's narrative gave them the perfect occasion to do exactly that. And some were simply deceived. They believed what they were told because they had no information to contradict it, and the performance was polished enough to make skepticism feel unkind. Whatever their individual reasons, every one of them accepted a false portrait of you. They received a distorted picture and filed it under truth. Now something has surfaced. Evidence, the kind that cannot be dismissed, reframed, or buried under another layer of narrative. Concrete proof of a pattern of behavior that tells a completely different account from the one they were given. One by one, these people are holding that proof and feeling the ground shift beneath everything they believed. Consider what that moment feels like internally. You have accepted a version of events. You have had conversations based on it. You have taken positions publicly. And now you are confronting something that proves the entire foundation of those positions was built on a lie. The disorientation is total. It is not simply a matter of updating information. It is an entire framework of reality coming apart at once. Right now, in private conversations, across messages, in silences that stretch longer than they should, this group is reckoning with two things simultaneously: what this person actually did, and what their own acceptance of the false narrative made them part of. Because the moment you receive a lie about someone and let it shape how you treat them, even without conscious intent, you become part of the mechanism. That second reckoning, the one about their own role, is the more uncomfortable one, and it belongs entirely to them to resolve. You do not owe them the comfort of managing that process. You do not owe them a graceful re-entry. What is unfolding right now is not happening for you. You already knew the truth. This is happening because truth operates on its own timeline and serves its own purpose. It is a correction the universe makes, regardless of anyone's preference or readiness. The wall is giving way, not because you pushed it, but because it was always hollow. Justice does not arrive looking the way you imagined when you needed it most, when you were in the thick of it, most alone, most dismissed, most in need of someone to simply see what was happening. You probably imagined justice as something clear, public and unmistakable, the kind of moment where truth lands in front of everyone at once, and the record corrects itself in a single dramatic beat. What actually happens is quieter, and in the end far more complete. The collapse of someone who has built an entire life on managed perception does not happen all at once. It begins with a single inconsistency that one person notices, one piece of evidence surfacing in an unexpected place, one account that does not quite align with something another person distinctly remembers, one small crack, then another, until the structure that appeared so solid from the outside reveals itself to be hollow and begins coming down, not in a single crash, but in the slow, irreversible way that hollow things always eventually do. This person is inside that collapse right now, exhausted from patching what fundamentally cannot hold, confronting the reality that every version of events they released into the world has a corresponding witness whose memory contradicts it. Every exit they believed they had secured is leaking. Every performance they delivered now has someone watching it again through entirely different eyes. The irony at the center of all of it is this: the very investment made in reputation, all that effort, all those people convinced, all that social capital carefully accumulated, is precisely what makes the collapse so complete. The higher the structure, the more spectacular the fall. The more people who fully believed the performance, the more people who now feel fully deceived. The pedestal they stood on is the very thing that amplifies the landing. You did not build yourself on a pedestal, you built yourself on something actual. And actual things do not collapse when the light finally hits them, they simply become more visible. As you watch this unfold, you might feel something you did not anticipate, not triumph, something more layered than that, a quiet sadness, not for what was done to you, but for the fact that this is where a long series of chosen behaviors ultimately led. The truth about someone who operates this way is that underneath all of it is a deep belief that they are not enough on their own, that their genuine self cannot generate what they need, that admiration must be engineered, and connection must be extracted. That foundational belief drove every single thing that was directed at you. You do not have to excuse any of it, but understanding it gives you something genuinely powerful. It removes the last trace of it from your system. When you understand the mechanism clearly, you stop carrying the weight of the output personally. What was done to you was never actually about you. It was always about a brokenness being projected outward, and you can put that down now completely and permanently. It was never yours to carry in the first place. While all of this was unfolding on the outside, something was accumulating inside you, something that is about to become impossible to ignore. Think of a river that has been dammed. The water does not disappear when a dam is built. It backs up, deepens, and builds pressure beneath the surface. When that dam eventually releases, whether because it breaks or because you consciously open it, what comes through is not a gentle flow, it is a surge. Everything that accumulated during the period of blockage moves at once, with a force proportional to how long it was held back. Your energy was dammed for as long as you were inside that situation. Your creative capacity, your warmth, your natural ability to attract the right people and build things that genuinely matter, all of it was being redirected into managing someone else's instability. You were not living your life. You were maintaining a system designed to serve someone else's need for control. That is finished. Everything held back is now moving. You may already be feeling it, a clarity that was not there before, a sense of forward pull, an ability to make decisions from a grounded place without first running them through anyone else's approval. That is not just the tail end of healing, that is your emergence. The version of you that the situation was suppressing is finally unencumbered, and once this version breaks the surface fully, nothing returns it to the dark. They were sold a portrait of you as diminished. The account they received required you to be flailing, unstable, unable to function without the structure this person claimed to provide. That was the narrative they were given, and for a period, because you were genuinely processing something painful, there may have been moments where the outside picture seemed to support it, but now you are fully visible, and what people are seeing does not match the portrait at all. You are not flailing, you are not diminished, you are building, clarifying, moving forward, becoming more authentically yourself with every step you take. You are a living, undeniable contradiction of everything they were told about you. And when that contradiction sits alongside the concrete evidence that has surfaced, the original narrative does not just weaken, it collapses entirely. That is the full scope of the disbelief. It is not only about this person being exposed, it is about you being undeniable. Let us talk about strategy. Real power is not only a feeling, it is a set of deliberate decisions. It is the way you carry yourself when you know something that most people around you are only just beginning to discover. And what do you know? You know the truth. You know who you are. You understand what was done, why it was designed the way it was, and what it cost you. You know the difference between light that is genuine and light that is borrowed. You know what solid ground feels like, after spending so long learning what unstable ground does. And you know with the certainty of someone who has been forged through fire that everything ahead of you is being prepared by everything you survived. So the move is not revenge. The move is not public engagement. The move is not re-entering the social spaces where this collapse is playing out and making sure everyone registers your presence there. That is reactive. That is performing at a frequency you have already risen far above. The move is to keep building, to lock in, to pour the full energy that is now available to you, energy that was being drained for so long, back into your own vision, your own people, and your own becoming. The exposure of this person is happening without your involvement. The reckoning of that group is unfolding without your participation. Justice is being administered without you lifting a single finger. That is the most powerful position you can occupy. You are free and moving forward, while something else runs its necessary course behind you. Let the noise be noise. You left the noise when you made the quiet exit. Do not walk back into it now. There is also something worth saying to the part of you that feels tempted to reach back to people who are now suddenly reconsidering, tempted to correct the public record, tempted to accept renewed contact from people who needed fresh evidence before they could extend you basic dignity. When you have been unseen for so long, being seen feels urgent, but the people who genuinely deserve access to you will reach out. The ones who do not will show you something about themselves that is worth receiving. Clearly, you have already graduated from investing your energy in people who require a proof of innocence before they treat you with basic respect. You do not beg to be believed, you continue, and you let the continuing speak for itself. Stay in your frequency, the one that has been growing stronger in the quiet. The right connections are already moving toward you, the right collaborations, the right love from someone drawn to your genuine light and not to the idea of managing it. All of it is incoming. All of it was always incoming. The only thing that was ever blocking it was the situation you walked out of. When a blockage clears, the flow does not simply resume at its previous level. It surges. You are in that surge now, or standing right at its edge. Either way, get ready. Position yourself. Stay open, because what is coming has been building for exactly as long as the pressure was on. Now look at who you are standing here as today. Still warm, still genuinely yourself, still leading with something real, but with something added that cannot be manufactured or taken away from you. Discernment, sovereign self-knowledge, the unshakable certainty of your own worth that only comes from being tested and choosing yourself inside the fire. The protection you carry now is not placed around your light. It is woven into the fabric of who you are. You shine exactly as freely as you always did, but you are no longer available to be consumed by anyone who mistakes your openness for unlimited access. That is the transformation. That is what this entire journey was building toward. Not the exposure of this person, though that is happening. Not the disbelief of the group, though that is happening too. The real destination was always you, this version of you, clear-eyed, grounded, sovereign, knowing exactly what you are worth, and moving in full alignment with that knowledge. The clock that started the moment they chose deception has now rung, and the only person standing steady when the alarm went off is you. You were always going to arrive here. The outcome was never in question. It was only ever a matter of when. The truth about you has been leaked, and it turns out it is magnificent. It always was. Go build what you were always meant to build. You are ready. You have always been ready. The world is simply finally catching up to you.